Shawn said, you should go home and masturbate, you should go home and please yourself. And, he'd tell me that, and I felt like that was so strange. It's such a weird thing to tell somebody who's going through betrayal. But that's the kind of person that he is, Shawn was much like Mike Bickle. Shawn, really studied people, and he knew how to manipulate people. He was obsessed with video games. Obsessed. Like, he'd spend 60% of his time playing video games. He'd have multiple consoles with him at any given time.
Imagine building a massive ministry empire for a famous prophet, only to endure years of self-touching in your presence and financial rip-offs that left you broke. That's the nightmare Jeremy Buttress lived for 7 years under Shawn Bolz. Stick around. This testimony will shatter what you think you know about charismatic leaders. In this video, we're breaking down Jeremy Buttress's explosive YouTube testimony titled, "I Was a Victim of Shawn Bolz, My Full Story." Jeremy was Bolz's senior staffer, ghostwriting books, launching courses, and basically building his empire from 14,000 followers to millions in revenue. But behind the prophecies and words of knowledge, Jeremy alleges a dark side of sensual violations, manipulation, and exploitation. I'll play key clips where he details the perverse stuff. Fair warning, it's heavy. Let's get into it. Jeremy starts by sharing his charismatic roots. BSSM at Bethel, interning for Bill Johnson, who he praises as generous and kind. Contrast that with Bolz. Jeremy joined to chase his ministry dreams, supporting his family. But early on, red flags popped up. Bolz's bachelor pad vibe included crude jokes, video game obsessions, and, well, a total disregard for boundaries. Jeremy says Bolz studied people like lab rats to manipulate them, narcissistic loops of control. But what kept him there? The promise of impact and income. How bad did it get? Hang tight. Here's Jeremy describing the power dynamics.
And so I met with Shawn. I said, I'd like to get into this. I'd like to be a pastor of some kind, not really pastoring people, but more itinerant and speaking and lead people and teach. I'm a good teacher, and I wanted to get into that. But I was open to serving if he could help make that happen, and I would serve him and work with him and on his stuff if he, helped me make my stuff happen. And he promised to do so. And so I was willing to take a pay cut, drop the thing, and start working with him part-time. So I did. And initially, it was just a couple hours a week, and I spent, my time in a 6 square foot room, little closet or 10 square feet, doing products and selling products. And it was when Shawn had 14,000 Facebook followers, and I basically started every department for him, resources and events and partnerships and e-courses and TV shows and podcasts. I started all of it. I built it all from scratch. I was an assistant initially, and I traveled with him. And initially, his attitude and demeanor kind of came along the lines of what I was experiencing with Bob Hartley in Kansas City and some of the Kansas City guys. Very bachelor pad kind of, locker room stuff, very crude jokes, sexual jokes, crude humor, sometimes racist, weird stuff with the anime. And he was obsessed with video games. Obsessed. Like, he'd spend 60% of his time playing video games. He'd have multiple consoles with him at any given time, and all various kinds of video games, and Shawn was much like Mike Bickle. Shawn, really studied people, and he knew how to manipulate people. I'm not just saying that flippantly, but he really truly studied people, and how to win people over and how to motivate them and coerce them in different ways, psychologically, and he'd use various narcissistic tendencies of loops and control to push a narrative and then get you to find out what you're thinking, and then circle back around again on you and get something from you. It was really interesting, but he was a great storyteller, and a lot of the leaders that we choose today are very narcissistic, polarizing people. It's because they're so black and white in their speech. They don't leave an open-endedness there. It's easy to follow them because they're so clear in their directive, and they can take a ton of beatings because they forget, because they're so obsessed with themselves. And you know, Shawn was very much like this. He'd call himself a Labrador. Like, he would just come back like a puppy and forget all what happened. Well, that's a narcissistic trait, a severe narcissistic trait. But you know, Shawn started, you know, down this path of seeing what I would be willing to endure with his crudeness and his humor and his references, and then he incorporated me in environments when I traveled with him into his naked, and to him it was just another thing that guys did, but you know, he'd be naked all the time. Like, if I was sharing a room with him, the second he got back to the room, he'd be naked, and you know, he was touching himself all the time. And I believe on a handful of occasions, you know, he pleased himself when I was in the room with him, lights on, lights off. You know, he's taking showers, walking back and forth, and answering the door naked, and calling me over to his room naked. And I just so disheartened by it. I felt like it's like this childish thing, like, grow up, you know. But I felt like it was a thorn in my flesh too, because I'm like, I have this mission, this vision of what I want to do with God, and I'm willing to endure this thing, you know. If this is my obstacle, I can endure it. Like, you know, I'll just find a way to distance myself, and you know, and brush it off, push it off, tell him no, you know. And I did, and I found a way to distance myself. And to some extent, you know, I asked for new room, I asked for a separate room when we traveled, and I demanded it instead of, like, you know, having, you know, like, it's okay with the budget. I really demanded it. And
Chilling, right? Jeremy felt trapped. Bolz had all the power, and speaking up could tank his career. This isn't just awkward, it's coercive. In parachurch setups like Bolz's, no real oversight means leaders can play God. Jeremy buffered the bad feedback, becoming the villain while knowing too much. But the sensual stuff, it escalates to straight-up violations. Jeremy alleges repeated exposure to Bolz's nudity, answering doors naked, stepping in shared rooms, even touching himself with lights on. Then the spas, naked couples scrubs that left Jeremy in emotional agony. He demanded separate rooms to cope, calling it his thorn in the flesh. Why endure? Family needs and ministry vision. But this screams abuse of power in a spiritual context. Listen to this raw part.
Shawn, you know, insistently invited me to, you know, go to Korean spas with him. He invited me to go out with him in the evenings. I said no to the evening stuff. You know, I was married at the time. I met somebody at Bethel, passed all the tests, got 100 on all the pre-marriage stuff, and you know, went through Danny's classes, and you know, scored all that. And, you know, they were there with me in Studio City, and I said no to all that stuff because of, you know, family. But he asked me 12 times to go to the Korean spa, so I finally said yes to that. I'd never been to a Korean spa, I didn't know what it was, but I enjoy a good shoulder massage, you know, so I thought, go get a back massage or something. And I didn't know that it was a naked spa, and you get butt naked, and then, you know, what he ordered for both of us was like a couple's like body scrub, where you get totally naked, you lay down on your back and your belly, and you get scrubbed in front of the other person. And so I'm laying next to him, a couple feet away. I'm on my back, and you know, some Korean guy's scrubbing me naked while Shawn's there, you know, completely visible with exposed, and I'm exposed. You know, I'm in this room naked, and the lights on and everything, and I, you know, it was so painful emotionally. You know, I knew, like, I've been through painful experiences. I wrestled, I played football, I dislocated my shoulders, had plastic surgery. I've, like, you know, been bit by a Rottweiler, reconstructive surgery. Like, I've been through painful experiences, but this is so emotionally painful to be here, because I'm arrested emotionally in this moment, and because my future, potential future, is in jeopardy if I say anything, and if I push back, and if I, you know, bark. And I feel like Shawn did this in a way so we could have a shared negative experience, so he could have something over me. And he did that on a continual basis, because you feel the shame, you feel the guilt, you feel the, you know, wrongness, and you want to bury it. You don't want to bring it up. You've got, you know, God is available and all these other things, and if you blow it up by revealing, you know, he did this to me, then your whole future with what you dreamed and what you hoped is gone. And there's such a power dynamic. I didn't feel like I had free choice ultimately to walk. I had to pay for my family, my car, my food. I was the breadwinner, and so I endured laying there getting scrubbed in front of my boss, supposed to be my spiritual leader as well, and then walking around naked at this Korean spa trying to cover myself up. And I never went back. After that I left, and I really truly distanced myself from Shawn in those personal settings. Obviously I worked with him a lot. It was very traumatic, but I went to lunch one day, and my ex-wife at the time said, she'd been cheating on me. She was having an affair with another woman. If I wasn't open to an open marriage, if she wanted a divorce. And I said, I value myself too much. I care too much about myself. And so, I delivered the divorce papers. She'd been cheating for a while, and I left. And I left, with the dog. And Shawn was gracious, and he let me stay in his pool house suite. The studio. So it's not suite, on the floor. And so I stayed there for a week. And during that time, he invited me, to have a drink and smoke a cigar in the evenings to relax. And I have to admit that was helpful during a really, painful time. And where you feel like your heart, is ripped out of your chest and betrayed, and Shawn said, you should go home and masturbate. You should go home and please yourself. And he'd tell me that, and I felt like that was so strange. It's such a weird thing to tell somebody who's going through betrayal. But that's the kind of person that he is, but the redemptive side of that is I was able to love again, in the future, and found my wonderful wife, Allie, and Shawn actually officiated our wedding, and all the people at Bolz went to our wedding, and I've been married to my wife, Allie, for 8 years now, or 7 or 8 years, 7 years. Been together for 8, married 7. I have a wonderful daughter. Her name's Aurora, and I was able to love again, and it was beautiful.
That hits hard. Jeremy's not bitter. He's speaking from healing. But it raises questions. How do we discern gifts from character? Bolz's inner circle, like Shawn Fuchs or Jennifer Toledo, Jeremy calls them out for enabling. This is why he stayed. Fear of losing everything. But finances? That's where it gets greedy. Jeremy built departments, wrote 70–80% of Bolz's books, drove millions in sales. Yet Bolz and wife Cherie allegedly paid themselves $800K, $1.2 yearly, splurging on Uber Eats and home renos via ministry funds. Jeremy's bonuses? Delayed or denied. No real board, just Vegas-style meetings. When Jeremy pushed back, tension exploded. He quit after a blowout, facing isolation and lawsuits. But Jeremy's story ends in redemption. Divine encounters healed his divorce trauma. He remarried, had a daughter, wrote 47 books, and started care for ABUC victims. His tone? Reflective, accountable. Test words: don't idolize leaders. This echoes Mike Winger's Bethel expose, patterns of protection over victims. What do you think? Is this a wake-up call for prophetic movements? Drop your thoughts below. Like if this opened your eyes, subscribe for more faith breakdowns and hit the bell. If you've got stories, share safely. Thanks for watching. See you next time. God bless.